Mark. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the public presentation of the Madison Avenue Streetscape project. I'm your host this evening, Rich Anthony, Principal Project Engineer for the City of Covington, Kentucky, Department of Public Works. With me this evening via Zoom meeting are Carol M. Bowman from the City Administration, Chris Clemens of WSP, our design consultant, Rob Hantz, also of WSP, Aaron Detchen, also of WSP, Gary Woltnizek of Human Nature, the landscape architect, and Mark Brueggemann of CT Consultants. We will be presenting to you the preliminary plan for the reconstruction of the public space along Madison Avenue from 8th Street to 11th Street. Following the presentation, we'll be answering questions submitted either via the Zoom chat box or using Google Forms or by raising your hand if you're participating in Google Meeting. At this point, I'm going to present you Chris Clemens of WSP to begin the actual presentation. Chris?
Thank you, Rich. Please confirm that you can see the slideshow presentation.
Right now, I've got your picture, and that's it. Here it is. Got it now.
Seeing it.
All right, working great now. All right, welcome everybody. Rich, thanks for the opportunity for us to present our Madison Avenue Streetscape project to the public to give them more information about what we are doing with the design of this fascinating project. Just to cover some ground rules for the project and how the presentation will flow. The first part of the meeting, we will present the project materials, followed by a question and answer and a general discussion session. Some guidelines for the meeting: all participants will be muted during the presentation. Questions can be typed in the dialog box for the presenters to view and answer after the presentation of the materials. I'm going to show you how you can type a question into the comment box right here. Everybody should see the chat box at the bottom of their screen that they can open up and type in a question. Another feature that you can utilize is raising your hand, which is also in the participant dialog box. You can hit the raise hand. I will let you know that we are holding all questions until the end, so we will get to you when the time comes. The other note I'd like to add is that this presentation is being recorded and will be available on the city website. To start off, the purpose and need for the project is to conform with the city streetscape design guidelines that they had set forth for the city. This includes enhancing sidewalks and streets, increasing safety, improving walkability, improving aesthetics, and attracting prospective businesses and talent to the downtown area of Covington. The proposed project components that we are looking at for the project are relocating the overhead utilities to below grade, reconstructing sidewalks, resurfacing the roadway pavement, installing mast arm signal poles, installing decorative street lights, and installing trees, plantings, and furniture along the corridor. Project timeline. The design of the project got started in spring of 2020, and we've advanced through preliminary design, which leads us to the fall of 2020 right now, which is why we're having this public information meeting. Moving on from the public information meeting, we are working to complete final design in the winter of 2020 or 21. That way we can let the project for construction and hopefully begin construction summer of 2021 with a target end of construction date of fall of 2022. I will let you know that these 3 bottom line items are all anticipated dates, and that's what the project team is working towards at this point. The first exhibit you can see is the Madison Avenue corridor. Essentially, the project limits run from 11th Street to the south, all the way to 8th Street at the north end of the project. This ties into the existing streetscapes that they've done to the north along Madison Avenue. As you can tell from the Madison Avenue typical section, we're going to be reconstructing from building face to building face, which is within the existing right-of-way. We are going to be providing 2 12-foot lanes, 1 in each direction, northbound and southbound, 8-foot parking lanes on both sides of the street, as well as reconstructing curbs and sidewalks on both sides of the street from the curb line to the building face, while providing a paver band that is part of the city design guidelines. We're also going to be implementing and installing new decorative light poles, street trees, and mast arm signal poles, as you can see in the distance, while resurfacing the roadway. Moving into an enlarged plan view of the corridor, we're starting to the south at 11th Street and working our way to the north. As you can tell, we are implementing proposed curb extensions at the intersection with Madison and Robbins Street. These will be hardscaped with pavers and street furnishings. We also are taking down the span wires and existing traffic signal poles and replacing them with mast arm signal poles. Continuing to the north, moving on from Robbins Street up to 9th Street, we are doing the same with these curb extensions at 10th Street and 9th Street as well. These will be hardscaped with pavers and street furnishings. This 3D perspective, looking from the south from Madison at 10th Street intersection. You can see how the curb extensions are developed to bump out to allow it for safer pedestrian traffic going across the street. It gives you a good view of the decorative lights, the trees along the sidewalks, and the mast arm signal poles in the background. As we continue north towards the end of the project, we go from 9th Street to 8th Street. As you can tell, we're still continuing the theme of resurfacing the roadway, providing parallel parking along the sidewalks, providing curb extensions at 9th Street, and then reconstructing the sidewalks and driveway aprons as they are today. We are also implementing mast arm signal poles at the intersection of Madison and 8th Street. The blow-up view that we are showing now is a 3D perspective from the southwest corner, a bird's eye view of the Madison Avenue and 9th Street intersection. Looking up the page would be north and going down the page would be south. You can see how these curb extensions are built out and wrap around the curbs, decorative light poles, and then the hardscaping along the sidewalks. Now we'll move on to showing some of the streetscape features that we are implementing throughout the project. I'd like to highlight that these streetscape features are all city standards that have already been developed and that we're going to utilize them throughout the corridor. This first one that you are seeing are basically the curb extensions with the pavers and street furnitures. Gary, do you have any additional detail you would like to add to this?
Well,
slide?
sure. I just wanted to add that, you know, we've been on pretty much the pieces, but it will be refined for improvements that, you know, seem to work better. You know, improvements, we included those. And part of that is this logical termini where the pavers, we selectively use just, you know, the paver band, the back maps and north phases, but how that returns and across the sidewalk and provides these areas where we can cluster benches and trash receptacles and places where people would gather on the street and stay out of the flow of traffic. I think that's it on this slide.
Thank you, Gary. As we move to the next slide, we're showing the standard city features that I discussed previously. Gary, would you like to go into a little bit more detail on these that we utilize throughout the corridor?
Yeah, there's a couple benches on north on the northern phases, and so this is very similar. It might not be the same manufacturer, but it's a high quality bench from the manufacturer with good coatings that will last a reasonable amount of time without maintenance. The bike rack is the same. The decorative street light is the same as North Madison trash receptacle, and the containers. We're pretty much following the standards and matching wherever possible what's out there, what you see on the previous phases.
Perfect. Thanks, Gary. Moving on, the next steps so that we can continue on into final design is to seek public comments. What we've done is put together public comment forms. You can find them in various locations. They will be up on the city website at the link attached. They will also be a link on the city website for a Google form that you can fill out there. These public comments were also delivered to each property owner and tenant along the corridor. There will be copies at the city building to fill out, and then you can also email any comments to the project team. And my email address is at the bottom of the comment form. Also, I want to let everybody know that the deadline for submitting comments is Friday, November 27th. With that, what I would like to do is open up the floor to any questions and have any discussions that anybody would like. Rob or Aaron or Rich, did we get any?
We have not received any comments or questions in the chat box. You may want to just make sure it's clarified that the folks that are watching on PB&K, of course, cannot submit any questions through the chat feature during this presentation. That's a view only but they will have to submit either questions via email or through the comments form. But just the property owners and business owners and tenants along the corridor have the access to provide comments during this live presentation.
Okay, good point, Rob. Does anybody who is on the Zoom meeting have any questions? They can raise their hand and we can unmute you so that you can speak.
So we have now just received, I'm sorry, we did receive 2 comments now in the chat box. And I'll go ahead and read the first one. It says, during the work, will the side streets off of Madison, such as 8th Street and 9th Street, be closed for any extended period of time? Chris, would you want to respond to that?
Yeah, can you repeat that one? Repeat it again?
Yes, the question was, during the construction work, will the side streets off of Madison, such as 8th and 9th Street, be closed for any extended periods of time?
We don't anticipate extended period of time closures, but there will be routine closures, temporary, to do pavement work and curb and sidewalk work throughout there. But
Not to mention utilities.
correct, utility work as well. So we anticipate there will be some closures, but it will be all part of our traffic control plan.
I've also got another question here. It says, is it correct to state that there are no bump outs at the corner of 8th and Madison? Will the sidewalk on the north side of 8th at Zapata be extended at all?
That is correct. We did not propose curb extensions at the 8th Street intersection due to the turning radiuses of the buses that utilize this route.
Yes, just to clarify, 8th Street to Madison is a bus route, and that to accommodate the turning radiuses of those buses, we were not able to provide a bump out at that intersection.
Are those the only 2 questions that we have in the chat dialog box?
That is correct. Those are the only 2 submitted questions, and no one has raised their hand to ask any questions.
Somebody's sending one more. Hold on.
I see your chat box must be ahead of mine, Rich. I haven't seen anything else yet come in.
Okay. I'm still waiting on it. So
Okay.
it just popped up. Somebody typed in one more,
Oh, okay.
but I don't have it yet.
Oh, so
Okay.
yeah, go
Will
ahead.
there be any extension of the sidewalk width at 8th Street? Again, we're dealing with the turning radius of the city buses. The answer to that will most likely be no.
Chris, can you go back to the exhibit? Do we have an exhibit that shows 8th Street, and maybe we can graphically show what's occurring on 8th Street?
Correct. Can you see it, Mark?
Yes.
Okay.
So go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead, Mark, if you want.
Sure. So traffic that is on 8th Street, they're heading eastbound on 8th Street and making the right-hand turn to head southbound on Madison. That is a designated tank route. And as a result, to accommodate the turning radii necessary for the buses, we're not able to do the bump outs that we see that we've provided at the other intersections along the corridor. As you can see, we just have a standard intersection radii at that intersection.
From clarification, the radius that you're seeing in the improvement matches the current radius of the curb as it exists today. Is that correct, Chris?
That is correct.
Currently, I'm seeing no additional questions or comments in the chat. And again, no one attending has raised their hand requesting to speak.
Okay, well, if nobody else has any more questions.
Another question. Rich, we just received another question. So I'll read this. It says, is it safe to assume that there will be times during the construction where access to the Madison side businesses will be closed?
They won't necessarily have to close. They might be hindered for an hour or two during work, but one of the conditions we always put is that access to adjoining businesses and residences must be maintained. Safe access must be maintained. So no, we won't be forcing businesses to close. There might be some access that might be hindered for short periods of time, say during placing and finishing of concrete or something like that. But we're talking parts of an hour to an hour. Even when they're placing concrete, they can still bridge over it. So I don't see that any significant hindrance to access.
And Rich, I would guess I'd add that, of course, the streetscape projects have already occurred north of here, and that was a similar type of procedure that the contractor would work with those adjoining businesses or residents or properties to make accommodations for their access. And I believe some of that even occurred off hours. If there was work in front of an entrance, it could be done outside of business hours or on weekends. You know, those types of accommodations would be made.
Certainly, there's a lot of things we can do to help people stay open.
Is any other questions, comments? I'm not seeing any further questions, but of course we'll give it a few more minutes to see if anyone types in another one.
Have you heard any response back from the notices that you delivered to the property owners and tenants?
I have not received anything yet.
Okay.
I know those
I
were
thought it was too soon, but
correct. Those were delivered on Monday of this week.
okay.
And then the public has until Friday, November 27th to get those comments back into us.
Christy, I know your email address is on that comment form, but do you want to give your email address out just so anybody that doesn't pick up one of these forms, I know it's a little hard to read on the screen here, just so the public has your email address if they so choose to submit an email to you. That's perfect. There you go.
Yes, I just pulled up the form on screen, and at the bottom, you have my contact information with my email address. That if you didn't complete the Google form or the hard copy, and you'd wish to email me your comments, my email address is chris.clemens@wsp.com.
I am not seeing any additional questions being asked in the chat box or again online. Anyone asking to speak?
Okay.
Questions. So,
Well, let's give it to the top of the hour. That's top 2 minutes. And
Okay.
at that point, if we don't have any further questions, we'll terminate this presentation.
See a question about where the recording of the presentation will be available.
That will be posted on the city website.
You know, there'll be a link that takes you to a whole library of recorded Zoom meetings.
It can be found here at the link if you go to the city's website. That's also where the public comments forms will be at, and other documents associated with the project.
Okay. If that is all, it is now 6 o'clock straight up. Let's go ahead and terminate this meeting. I thank everybody for their help in this and their participation. Until tomorrow evening.